Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. It is the message of the angel. It is the message of Jesus. It is the message of the church. Do not be afraid. It comes to us 3 times in today's gospel. Well, for those of you counting, okay, actually twice, but we'll get to the third one, okay? The first, do not be afraid, comes from the angel in the garden. So let's talk about this for a moment. If I were to tell you to stop doing something, what does it mean you were doing? The thing I told you to stop doing, right? So, for example, if I were to tell you to stop picking your nose, what were you just doing? You said it, not me. So the angel says, do not be afraid. Why? Because they were afraid. They were scared, horrified, nervous, frightened, startled, alarmed. It's 5:30 in the morning and the women are standing in the garden. I like to picture in my mind the women arriving there in the garden. Their friend and teacher had just died. Have you ever had bad news and then you just can't sleep? You go stir crazy in the house. Nothing will satisfy you. You keep tossing and turning, and finally you just get up. I picture Mary Magdalene, eyes red with tears, exhausted from lack of sleep, drained with grief and heartache. I picture her pacing around, and then a burst of energy hits. There's no more waiting. I think that she's thinking, I gotta get to the cemetery. I don't care, it's 5 a.m., I'm going. And then on the path, she sees the other Mary heading the same way. They lock eyes and arms and head together to the tomb. Suddenly the ground starts to shake. An angel rolls back the stone and sits on it. Already the armed guards had fainted. They are laid out like dead men. And the angel says, do not be afraid. Why? Because they are afraid. They're afraid, but the angel says, don't be. I know who you are looking for. I know who you are looking for. I know why you are here. You seek Jesus. You seek Jesus. He is raised from the dead and indeed is going ahead of you. Go and tell his followers. The angel tells them not to be afraid, gives them the good news that Jesus is alive, and sends them out with a purpose. So I love this next bit, especially for its honesty. They leave the tomb quickly with fear and great joy. Did you catch that? With fear and joy. They live out this tension between our most base human instinct of fear and joy. Think about what it would mean to leave here today with fear and with great joy. It might be hard for us to imagine. I mean, it's such a beautiful day. The flowers look pretty, don't they? You guys look pretty, don't you? Yeah. Why talk about fear? What do we have to be afraid of? Well, I think the women were feeling at the same time. Y'all do know that, right? That women can feel two things at once at the same time. Yeah, it's actually true for all of us. The women were feeling fearful and joyful because they knew they would never be the same again. They would never be the same again. Now that's something to be afraid of. That they would never be the same again. That the world had changed, had pivoted on its axis. That they were changed. And that's scary. Even though it's good news, it's still a bit scary. Because the old ways of sin, death, and the devil, even though they're wrong, they're comfortable. I mean, this is just how the world works, right? But Jesus has changed all of that. We are talking about a new world, a new order, a new life. Well, in the midst of running quickly from the tomb to go and tell the others, Mary, the apostle to the apostles, is suddenly met by Jesus. Jesus greets them. They grab hold of him. They wrap their hands around his ankles. They worshiped him. And guess what Jesus says next? Do not be afraid. You've got places to go. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me. Jesus tells them not to be afraid. He commissions them to go and to tell others. And he promises to show up. Now, I said that there were 3 messages of do not be afraid. The angel says it, Jesus says it, and the church, you and I believe this too is our message. You see, I believe that we are given the task of telling the world not to be afraid. We tell each other, do not be afraid. Don't get stuck in fear. Don't let fear dictate who you are. Don't let fear determine who you welcome or who you do not. Do not be so afraid about your survival that you neglect your mission. Do not be so hung up on self-preservation that you neglect to give yourself away. We, the church, proclaim the message of the risen Christ. We are sent and told to go. You're all going to get kicked out in just a few minutes, right? You can't stay here as much as you would like to. You're all told to go, to leave, and to tell others that Jesus promises to meet us. So let us all leave this place today, maybe with a little fear. Things are going to change, and with great joy, things are going to change. And with this message on our lips, Alleluia, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia.